All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Today we're doing something a little different.
Yeah.
We're going behind the curtain of a bank you see every day, but whose history is anything but ordinary.
Oh, exciting.
Get ready to explore the fascinating and often shadowy world of HSBC.
Yes, HSBC, a bank with a reach most people wouldn't believe. We'll be drawing from Uncovering HSBC's Dark Financial Empire, the Untouchable Bank.
Whoa, the Untouchable Bank.
Yeah,
It's a catchy title.
it's a pretty provocative title, isn't it? I mean, what does that even mean?
Well, it grabs your attention, that's for sure. As we go through this, you'll see why they might have landed on that name.
Okay, so where do we even begin with a story like this?
Well, to understand HSBC's power, we need to go all the way back to its origins in 19th century Hong Kong.
Okay.
It all started during a time when a controversial trade was booming. Opium?
Wait, hold on. Opium.
Yeah.
The bank we see on our street corners today
Mm-hmm.
started with the opium trade.
It's a surprising connection, for sure.
Yeah. Now, while HSBC wasn't directly created by opium traders,
Yeah.
many of its early board members were involved in this business.
Wow, so they weren't afraid of a little risk.
Well, this business was very lucrative, though ethically questionable, obviously.
That's a wild start for a bank. So, how did this early involvement with the opium trade shape HSBC?
Oh, it had a significant impact on the bank's early culture. Think about it. Operating in that kind of market, you need a certain tolerance for risk
Yeah.
and a willingness to operate in legal gray areas.
Right.
Those traits got embedded into HSBC's DNA.
So from the very beginning, they weren't afraid to push boundaries.
Yeah, you could say that.
And this connection to China, it goes deeper than just the name, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. It's
Mhm.
almost like their destinies are intertwined.
As the documentary highlights, HSBC's growth was deeply connected to Hong Kong's rise as a global financial hub. They became each other's safety net.
Interesting.
Yeah, through thick and thin. And this relationship really came into play during the 2008 financial crisis, right?
Right.
Didn't Chinese investors kind of swoop in and save the day when it looked like things were going to collapse?
They did. The documentary even shows footage of Chinese tourists arriving at HSBC branches with baskets full of cash.
Wow, that's a crazy image.
Yeah.
Speaks to the sheer scale of financial flows that HSBC handles.
Yeah.
But this story has a darker side, right?
Oh, for sure.
The documentary doesn't shy away from HSBC's involvement in some pretty major money laundering scandals.
Right. 2012, the U.S. Senate hearing, that was a pivotal moment. HSBC Mexico was accused of laundering money.
Oh, wow.
Hundreds of millions of dollars for some of the most notorious drug cartels in the world.
That's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, ignoring red flags, facilitating suspicious transactions, basically turning a blind eye to where all this money was coming from.
So how did they escape serious consequences?
This is where the concept of too big to jail comes in. HSBC successfully argued that prosecuting them would destabilize the entire global financial system.
So they were basically too powerful to touch.
Essentially, yeah. They ended up paying a hefty fine, but no one went to jail.
Wow.
Yeah.
It feels like a slap on the wrist considering how serious those accusations were.
It does raise some serious questions about how accountable these institutions are.
Yeah. Makes you think about the power dynamics at play between these institutions and governments.
For sure.
And this wasn't an isolated incident.
Not at all.
Remember the Swiss leaks scandal?
Oh, yeah, that was a big one. Leaked documents exposed how HSBC Switzerland was helping wealthy individuals evade taxes on a massive scale.
It's crazy the scale of that. 100,000 clients and 180 billion.
Yeah, we're talking about more money than the EU's budget.
Wow. It's a reminder that this isn't just some small-time offense. It's a systemic problem.
Definitely.
And it's often facilitated by institutions like HSBC.
And the level of secrecy was really striking. The documentary mentions how HSBC wealth managers even used code names like Zidane to discuss their clients' assets.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
I know, right?
Speaking of global power plays, let's talk about HSBC's relationship with China.
Okay.
As China's influence grows on the world stage, how has HSBC navigated that shift?
Well, HSBC strategically positioned itself to benefit from China's rise.
Okay.
They moved their headquarters to London before the handover of Hong Kong back to China in 1997.
Smart, so they're playing both sides.
Exactly. They have a foothold in both the Western and Eastern financial worlds.
And I think they were the only foreign bank to stay in mainland China during the Mao era.
That's right.
Seemed pretty risky at the time.
It did, but that decision ended up being a stroke of genius. They were perfectly positioned for China's economic boom.
Yeah.
And today, HSBC is a key player in China's ambition to challenge the U.S. dollar.
The documentary highlights that by talking about their role in the internationalization of the yuan and how they're financing major Chinese projects abroad, like that nuclear power plant in the UK.
Yeah, that's right.
It makes you wonder about the potential risks involved.
Mm.
Are they creating vulnerabilities in the global system by supporting these ambitions?
It's a valid concern. It's a question we'll keep exploring as we go further into HSBC's operations and global impact.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue. No easy answers.
Right, and it makes you wonder who really benefits from this system. Is it just the wealthy elite, or does it trickle down to the rest of us?
That's the million-dollar question. The documentary doesn't really offer any solutions. It just lays out the facts.
Yeah.
Asks us to grapple with this complex interplay
Yeah.
between finance, geopolitics, ethical considerations.
It's fascinating how HSBC has managed to navigate all these different situations with multiple scandals and crises, and somehow they come out stronger each time.
Right.
Almost like they have this sixth sense for anticipating global trends.
They've definitely been good at adapting,
Yeah.
and their relationship with China is definitely a major advantage these days.
Speaking of China, one thing the documentary touched on was the massive flow of illicit funds out of China.
One expert even called it the black hole of black holes within the global financial system.
Whoa.
That's a pretty alarming image.
It is. And with HSBC's roots in China, they're inevitably caught up in all this. Remember those images of Chinese tourists arriving at HSBC branches with basketball full of cash?
Yeah.
Imagine that, but like times 1,000.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And the documentary suggests that a lot of this money is being moved through clandestine channels, often using shell companies and offshore havens.
Right.
Can you explain what those are? Some of our listeners might not be familiar with those terms.
Of course. A shell company is basically a company that exists only on paper. No real business operations.
No.
They're often used to hide the true ownership of assets or to move money around without being detected.
Yeah.
And offshore havens, these are countries or jurisdictions with low taxes and loose regulations.
Okay.
They're great places to hide money from tax authorities or law enforcement.
So these mechanisms are being exploited to move vast sums of money under the radar. It makes you question how effective financial regulations really are.
It's a challenge.
Can governments really control these flows of illicit funds?
It's a huge challenge. The documentary interviews former regulators
Oh, wow.
and law enforcement officials.
Yeah.
They're frustrated at the lack of progress
Yeah.
in stopping all this.
But it's not just about catching the bad guys, right?
No, it's not just about that.
It's about fixing the system that allows all this to happen in the first place.
Exactly. One of those is this too big to fail thing we've been talking about.
Yeah.
When banks like HSBC are considered too big to fail, it creates a dangerous situation.
Right.
They might feel like they can get away with more than smaller institutions.
It creates a vicious cycle
That does.
that erodes trust in the entire system.
Yeah, and ultimately it's the everyday people who pay the price.
So where do we go from here? Is there any hope for a more transparent and accountable system? What can we do to fix these problems?
That's the question, isn't it? The documentary doesn't have all the answers, but it highlights the need for greater international cooperation
Right.
and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
And I think it also suggests that we as individuals have a role to play, right?
Well, for sure.
By being informed about how the financial system works and demanding transparency.
Yeah, we need to hold our elected officials accountable,
Yeah.
push for reforms that benefit everyone, not just the special interests.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
It really is.
This conversation is making me think about the bigger picture here.
In what way?
We talked about HSBC's origins in the opium trade, their ties to China, their involvement in money laundering. It's like they're this microcosm of the global financial system itself.
I see what you mean, reflecting all the complexities and contradictions.
Yeah.
HSBC's story really gives us a look into how global finance really works,
Yeah.
with all its potential for good and bad.
And the documentary makes us think critically about these systems that we've created, the choices we make as individuals, as a society. One of the things it brought up was how HSBC has kind of shifted allegiances.
Oh, you mean from being this, like, pillar of the British Empire to now being a key player in China's rise?
Exactly. It's a huge shift, one that has major implications for global finance.
Right.
As China's economic and political power grows, so too will the influence of institutions like HSBC.
It's a trend we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
The documentary even suggests that China could one day be a major shareholder in HSBC,
Wow.
which would give them even more control.
That would have been unthinkable a few decades ago, but now it seems totally possible.
I know, right?
It's a testament to how quickly China has transformed and how HSBC has adapted to this new world order. Yeah, it's exciting in a way,
Yeah.
but also a little unnerving.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it goes way beyond just economics.
Oh, definitely.
Geopolitics, national security, even values,
Yeah. Yeah.
like what's going to shape the 21st century.
So what does this all mean for the average person?
Right.
That's the big takeaway here from our deep dive into HSBC.
I think we need to remember that we're not just passive observers in all this.
Right.
We need to understand these forces at play. The role of institutions like HSBC
Yeah.
and what China's growing influence means on the world stage.
And we can't forget that these institutions are made up of people
Right.
making decisions
Yeah.
with consequences that affect everyone.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of global finance. It
Right.
starts with being informed, being engaged, demanding more transparency and accountability.
What a journey.
It has been.
From opium dens in 19th century Hong Kong to the skyscrapers of London and Shanghai,
Yeah.
HSBC's story really captures that enduring power of money and ambition.
It does.
This intricate dance between East and West.
And the story's not over yet.
Right.
The question is, will HSBC be a force for good in this new era?
Yeah.
Or will it repeat the patterns of the past?
That's something we all have to think about. One thing's for sure. The world of finance is changing fast, and HSBC will be right at the center of it all.
For sure, shaping the future in ways we can't even imagine yet.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
As always, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the forces that shape our world.